Welcome, one and all, to our second artist talk of BN 2023 this week. We host amazing artists and great thinkers. One more talk tomorrow, same place, same time. You are all kindly invited to join us again. My name is Sanja, and I'll be talking to our guests. Today, we host Habiba Nowrose. Her work, Concealed, is on view in Kranj. So if you haven't visited the biennial exhibitions yet, you're invited to take a walk around Kranj, Kofja Loka, Jesenice, or Nova Gorica. There's still plenty of time for you to enjoy the plethora of beautiful, inquisitive, and innovative pieces of art. Our guest today is Dhaka-based photographer and researcher. She studied women and gender studies and later on photography. And today she's teaching visual anthropology. Her work explores human relationships and gender fluidity and has been exhibited in galleries all over Asia and beyond. Her series Concealed was a finalist for the 2018 Invisible Photographers Asia Art Award and the Samdani Art Award in 2020. Habiba, welcome to BN.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sonia.
I hope you're having a great day, and we're looking forward to seeing your art and hearing some maybe secrets about your process. Maybe for the for the beginning, can you tell us a bit about your journey through life that brought you to this point where we are today?
Like you mentioned in my short bio, that I actually studied women and gender studies, and I mean, what you study in university in Bangladesh is very important because you must, like, no matter what you do in life, you must have a degree in something something that people deem important, like engineering or medicine. But I decided very early on that I'm not going to go there because I have always loved art. So yeah, women and gender studies actually is something that actually interested me when I was picking my major. So I took it, but deep down I also knew that I have to do some sort of creative thing. So that's how I started actually. And I actually come from a very conservative family, traditional Muslim family. I would define it like that. And particularly my mother was very strict about me drawing animals and figures because according to her, according to her and many other people, that it is prohibited in Islam to draw faces. You can draw things that does not have any faces or eyes, or not something living. But yeah, this is a common notion in Bangladesh. So they were very strict about me not going to any sort of art school, even when I was a kid. So it was something that is embedded in my heart that I want to pursue it somehow. And when I started my academic journey in women and gender studies, I got some free time, and I thought I would start photography. That's how I started. And then I started exploring photography, and the traditional photojournalism or traditional documentary style was not something that interested me at that time. But the mainstream photography in my school was actually geared towards that. But it's something that was not, I was not happy doing those things. Maybe I can share my screen and show some of the images. Yeah. So I was, I had to practice like traditional journalistic, journalistic style of photography, traditional documentary style of photography. But I was not satisfied. In 2014, I actually decided that no matter what happens in the final semester, I would do something that actually makes me happy. Um, Rather than doing something that actually everyone else is doing, or I should be doing, people thought. So I decided to make portraits, and something uh, I tried to look into my heart and see what actually inspired me. And there is this particular memory that came back to me repeatedly, where during the Eid, which is one of the biggest religious festival of is Muslims, during the Eid holidays, like it is our culture that we have to buy clothes for the people who help us in our homes, or the people who are poor, and we call it zakat, where you have to, if you have some amount of money, you have to give it a part of it away, in order to satisfy Almighty. So people used to buy clothes, cheap printed clothes for household help, or the people who are like underprivileged, who are living around your villages. So I had a very vivid memory of those clothes, and those were something very bright, colorful, floral saris that women used to wear, who used to work in our homes as domestic help. And people used to think like, and till today, people think that those are very cheap looking. It has a very kitschy look, and it is not very sophisticated. Although many people has, although many brands and many how do I say, many style houses, or stylist has perfected it now and made it more mainstream. But back in I mean, sometime back, it was not very sophisticated to wear really large bold prints. But I was really fascinated by the saturated colors, the florals and the prints and everything, and I wanted to incorporate those things in my work somehow. So that's when I decided that okay, I would incorporate those prints, and I started buying fabrics. I've started collecting, picking out the ones that spoke to me really deeply. The image that you see right now is the subject is wearing Punjabi, traditional Bangladeshi uh, attire, and this actually belongs to me. And the background that you see, it is actually a bed sheet, bed cover, that actually also belong to my home. So yeah, I started collecting these things, and putting together setting backgrounds, and making started making portraits with it. But this is definitely not the first image. I started doing a lot of, I had to go through a lot of trial and error, and after going through several efforts, several attempts actually, then the series started coming along, and started looking like this. And I haven't really arranged the portfolio according to how I started the work, so it will be difficult to understand the process, or how I continued the work. But I will explain you guys. This I took at the later part of my work, probably in 2017. So I was using a lot of really saturated bold colors in the beginning, like the one that you have used in the what do I say, in the street, the image that you have used for the talk. Those I made in the early days. So in the beginning, I was using that kind of colors, like reds and oranges, and really bold floral prints. And this, I thought that it would be really interesting to do something not very, but somewhat subdued, comparing to what I used to do. So this was also in the beginning, and yeah. I had also have to share another story, of what I was regarding what I was experiencing at that time. It was during it was a phase when I completed my graduation, and I actually studied two things simultaneously: photography and women and gender studies. And I finished with the gender studies, and my parents thought, okay, she was doing photography as a hobby, and she will never take it so seriously. So they were okay with me doing it as a hobby. But when I finished my school, I was completely and I went back to doing photography very sincerely, and my parents were really worried, and they wanted me to get married or have a respectable job. Like respectable job in Bangladesh means where you do not have to roam around outside your home, and you sit in the office and you do your stuff in a computer and spend all day there. So photography was not something respectable enough for me, and also it was the future in the photography industry were completely unknown to them, and they didn't want me to pursue it. Now I understand why would a guardian think like that, but I also didn't know what would my future look like. So it was quite a big risk that I wanted to take. And also I felt really suffocated because everyone wanted me to be either a person who has a really good career or respectable career, and be a respectable woman, marry somebody respectable, I say it very sarcastically because it became so suffocating for me. But I decided, I want to express this feeling of suffocation. I want to express the feeling of not knowing where I actually belonged, and having this very ambiguous feeling inside me about my identity and how I felt and how the world felt about me, and the feeling of being lost at times. So that's where when I started making these portraits, I felt the people who were having had no faces, but having their clothes to express who they are, were something that was actually resonating with my emotions at that time. I had an exhibition in. Am I going too fast? You can stop me if anybody has any question.
No, it's great. We will stop you if we have anything. Maybe just um, now, when you were talking about respectable jobs in Bangladesh, is your career now at this point considered respectable by your family? Did you change their mind?
I was able to change their mind somewhat because they saw that my work was being appreciated in places that they didn't really thought was possible, and they thought that it was something that it was a job. Like they didn't know that there was anything else possible other than photojournalism. So they thought I'm going to go into places where there is conflict going on, or political clashes, and also like natural disaster and stuff like that. But when they thought that it was completely different, I was doing something very creative, and people were really appreciating. And it's not only being appreciated; it's actually something that actually attracts them also visually. They started realizing that they had a very wrong idea about what I was doing. So I was able to change their mind. Yeah.
That's really nice. I was just thinking, because all the subjects in your photographs have covered faces. How important is the model in the photograph? Maybe sometimes you could even just have a mannequin beneath. You don't really know. So, how much does the person that's posing for you inform your photograph and what you're trying to do with it? Is the person beneath all those clothes important?
The person as the individual who is actually posing for the work is not that important, but the person expressing a particular type of feeling is more important than the individual. Uh, I hope I make sense. So what I'm trying to say that no matter who is actually posing for the work, they have to express something that is actually more important for me than the person themselves. I was trying to convey the feeling of being lost, not having an identity. So anybody who was able to was able to convey that through the body language, through the pose, through the way they were sitting, and through the clothes or background, was able to pose for my work. Um, uh, Hope I have answered your question.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe how does a photography begin for you? Do you start with the textiles, with the patterns? It's probably a long process before you come to the final shot. How does your process look?
Yeah, like in the beginning, what I have realized that the process is actually simultaneous. I have the feeling about some person or some or the feeling that I'm going through. I have those feelings, so I try to express those feelings with the fabrics that are fascinating me at that time. So it actually what happened simultaneously. I can't, like put a finger on it and say that this actually started first and then this happened. I would say this actually happened at the same time. And also, like when I used to visit the shops in Bangladesh, like we have this street where we have this Chandni Chowk and New Market. There are several markets in one place, and lots of people go there every single day. Like it's a place for like cheap and expensive both type of clothes. We have this traditional clothes and Western clothes, like and people from all the classes, religion go there to buy fabrics or their traditional clothes from there. And I used to visit those streets every afternoon, and as I would pass through the shops and see the colors and textile and the garments, they would also inspire me to make images. So it actually happened simultaneously. I would have a feeling and think about a possibility and go visit the shops, and the shops would also feed into the possibilities or my imagination, and then that's how it came. Uh, that's how I started making these portraits. Yeah.
And you started producing this kind of work in 2013, am I correct? With
Yeah, 2014.
14, and you have actually two ongoing series, Life of
Mhm.
Venus and Concealed, that is also on view here in Kranj. Um,
Mhm.
are these series countering or complementing each other? How do you see the two series? How did they came to be for you?
Um, the first part of the, I mean, the work that I did first was Conceal, that is on the view. The second part, I would say, the second part of Concealed is Life of Venus. And Life of Venus is actually, I started this work during another festival, which is called Chobi Mela, one of the biggest photography festival in South Asia. It is actually organized by Pathshala South Asian Media Institute, where I teach and where I have studied photography. And they have a program, fellowship program, and not really. Yeah, they have a program where they selected artists create new work for the festival, or the show modified different version of a old work. So I actually started Life of Venus for that festival, and when I started this work, I actually I actually wanted to make a joke out of like the traditional documentary style, because I felt, okay, how about I talk about ideal womanhood, which I was trying to do in Concealed also. Like I was talking about ideal beauty and how it is restricting for women. How about I pick one's imaginary character and try to do a documentary style of work in a completely different context, where I do like completely imaginary things and with textile. So I was thinking like that, and I imagined a character called Venus, who is the epitome of ideal womanhood, persuasion, charm, and beauty. And I also needed another character who is polar opposite of that women, um, ideal man, and how their domestic life would look like, and would they be very different from would they be very different from the women I know, or they're very similar to the women I have seen every day in my life. So these are the questions that were going on inside my mind, and I was trying to investigate investigate those things. So I used these terms in my text also, because in my mind I was kind of joking with like traditional documentary style. So yeah, that's how I started this work. It is actually an extended documentary style of second part of Consul series, I would say. Yeah, I hope I make sense.
Yeah, okay. I was just thinking, now with the Venus and the woman in the center, can we maybe expect in the future you would also explore male position in a society, or has it been explored enough and we need to keep the focus on the woman?
Um, Male position. That's a very interesting question. Nobody has asked me that before. I'm not very keen, to be very honest. Because yeah, I mean, my journey. This can easily be, my work can easily be regarded as something autobiographic, I think, because yeah, these are the things that are informed by my especially Consult and Life of Venus is informed by my experience in this world as a woman. So I don't think I know much about the experience of men, and I'm not very keen to explore that visually. I have so many other topics that I have thought to do, but not this one. But I'll think about it for sure.
Okay, what are other topics that you're thinking about that you'd like to bring to your art, maybe?
Like myths, traditional myths in Bangladesh, and also like fairy tale stories. They do inspire me in some ways. For instance, like the last work that I have done with the food, um, uh, food still lives. I actually used, some aspects of like, aspects of like the fairy tales that I have grown up listening, like this image of fish and pomegranate. Pomegranate is something that came repeatedly in our many fairy tales, although this is not a very common fruit in Bangladesh. It is common, like you see these trees in villages, in households, in homes, but it's not really, I mean, we don't really produce it a lot. But there we have these stories where like a prince comes out from this pomegranate, and there is this, there's this monster, and his life is actually hidden inside the pond where this magical fish swims. So when I was making these sculptures and taking this still life with food, I was actually thinking about these stories, and I think this work is also inspired. This work is actually inspired by those myths and fairy tale stories. So yeah, myths and also women's rights issues, sexual politics and politics between men and women. These are the things that really deeply interest me, and yeah. Uh,
Yeah, and I was also thinking a lot about color when looking at your work. It seems to have a great importance. How do you use it? Do you consider some traditional symbolism when you work with color, or do you maybe have your own personal mythology and symbolism of color use? For instance, I noticed that a lot of food is dyed blue in your latest work. How do you approach and use color?
um, this is a very, and I have been asked this repeatedly, but it's a bit tricky for me to answer, because ever since I have thought about making art, making work, I've thought in color. Like, but in photography, it's I mean, I have seen black and white dominating the field so much, but I'm not very good at it, honestly. I think in color, like when I think about any image, anything, like any object, anything in my life, I think in terms of color. So it's something that comes to me very naturally. Uh, if you ask me why I have dyed blue, blue is like currently I have the feeling that I mean I'm going through a phase of blues. Like if I buy something, buy a laptop, I would try to find if there's a blue laptop. If I try to find clothes, I would try to find blue clothes. It's not something that I would do consciously, but it has become so natural to me that I can say that I go through different stages of colors. Like there was another phase where I went through only reds. Like I used to buy everything red. And also like culturally, these are the basic things. Like blue is something that you associate with like soft, soothing feelings, or also like sadness. We also have phrases, but when I was making this food image in particular, I also wanted to express the feeling of like suffocation, the vulgarity of everyday mundane things, the repeated and backbreaking nature of household stuff, household work. So I felt that if I use it repeatedly, there would be a feeling of like disgust. So I wanted to give that feeling. So I felt that blue was conveying that feeling. So I used it. Hope I answered your question.
Well, so maybe some might say it looks appetizing. Um,
Appetizing.
it
Okay.
depends, you know. I just got reminded of the rainbow cakes and how some people like eating colorful food, even if they
Mhm.
know that they've been artificially dyed. And yeah,
Mhm.
I can see your way of thinking and your reasoning, and I think it's much closer to what one would naturally feel about food being uh, an unusual color. Um, yeah, that's really interesting. Um, and as you were talking before about mythology, yeah, this one it's much closer to nature. Beautiful wine colors and grapes. You were talking about
Mhm.
mythology and tradition because Venus is from Roman tradition. Um, how come you chose Venus? Because
Mhm.
she's so, I don't know, universally known and not maybe some deity from your own culture? Um, was Venus just more,
Yes.
I don't know, more universally approachable?
Yeah. You're right about this. Like these are the things that are familiar to us so well. Like we know this concept so well that I felt that I never really thought that it's something completely alien to our culture. So particularly the ideal womanhood. Like if I name the, I mean, if I particularly specify a character with the name Venus, it doesn't necessarily mean that it would actually mean only the Venus, the goddess from
Mm,
Roman mythology, but it would actually introduce the concept also. So that was more important for me. Like I don't think my work, uh, I mean, all of the images actually was inspired from the Renaissance type painting. It was actually there are several images that you can see inspiration were taken from those paintings, but not all of them. So I felt that it was important for me to talk about the ideal womanhood, not only with like our traditional traditional iconic figures, but something that is universally familiar and would be easily people would easily understand. So I didn't really think that it was necessary for me to pick our traditional god, because yeah, I was actually making this work mine anyway, because obviously Venus do not wear hijabs or headscarves or do not hide their faces. So this, I made the idea mine also from the very beginning. So it didn't really bother me at all.
Um, you mentioned before that a lot of backgrounds, there are bed sheets,
Yeah.
and they're also beautifully painted with beautiful patterns and colors. Bangladesh is known for textile art and textile making that goes back for centuries.
Mhm.
How does that reflect in society and also in your work? Um, does it have an impact that you are surrounded with so much history of textile making?
Honestly, I didn't really think about these as facts. I was actually following my intuition, my inspiration when I was doing these two work. On the only thing that actually I kept constant is throughout three of the work that I have just shown to you guys, is that I wanted to use printed clothes that are regarded not very sophisticated, that are very cheap, and people consider it very kitschy and not very tasteful, and not very sophisticated. I wanted to use those textile because it has a very particular distinct language that I have always been fascinated with, and I wanted to document it. I wanted to use it in my work somehow, and I wanted to like keep it uh, keep it till now. So the factual things that the Bangladesh has a very rich history of producing, like silk. Bangladesh used to produce silk, very good high quality silk in Dhaka, in around many places in Dhaka. But it didn't really. I wasn't really directly inspired by those things. It's more like my childhood memories and what I see every day in Bangladesh. The regular women, the garments worker, and also like the household domestic help. I see them wearing every day, and the women I see on the streets every day. Those were my inspiration, but not the factual things that we have a very rich history of doing this, or the garments industry. Not those things. I mean, those things didn't really directly inspire me up until now. Only recently I have started really thinking more into this, and yeah, probably in future I would do something with this. Yeah.
What about art scene in Bangladesh in general? Um, I think for us, maybe it would be interesting to know a little bit how art works there, how are artists supported. You were nominated for a few prizes. How does, for instance, receiving a prize reflect on an artist?
Um, well, art scene in Bangladesh, that's a really broad question, but I would try to answer it with the best of my capacity. But yeah, like
Just
the
so
photography,
we have a glimpse of how it
yeah.
works.
Uh, I can start talking about the photography industry. Like the Pathshala South Asian Media Institute is one of the biggest photography school in Bangladesh. Like we have really great international programs where people from Europe and also from like Asia come to learn from Pathshala. And we have like really great photography festival that I have mentioned before, Chobi Mela, international festival of photography, where like there has been many artists, many renowned world famous artists whose work has been shown. And I mean, in the previous edition we have only shown shown the works by photographers only, lens-based artists only. But in the past few editions, we have started collaborating with the fine art scenes, fine art artists, and we have started making works that are actually more mixed in quality rather than only photography based. And also, like our school is also transitioning into more of an art school rather than only focusing on photography, where they would practice many different types of medium, many different types of media, and produce something that is more, more mixed media more mixed media, and rather than only focusing on photography. So this is the practices. These are the practices in brief. But also, like the fine art scene, I would say we have a very vibrant fine art. Artists, and many people also take inspiration from the traditional things like rickshaw painting, and which is a very common ride in Bangladesh. You see a lot of rickshaw in Dhaka city, and they use this very vibrant, colorful paintings in the transport. And many artists has taken inspiration from those. Uh, our everyday lives, and I can mention Nazli Laila Mansoor. She is one of the really famous artists who has taken inspiration from the rickshaw painting, and she has a very distinct style, and I'm also inspired by her work. So yeah, we practice a lot of different mediums. Yeah, I hope I have given you some idea. If you have any other specific question, I can try answer it, because it's a really big topic to tackle.
Yeah, I understand. Maybe you were talking now about inspiration. We've heard what inspires you, but maybe also some artists that you look up to or respect, or also take inspiration from. Maybe do you have a name?
From Bangladesh, I would mention again Nazli Laila Mansoor. She's a fine artist. I mean, she does a lot of paintings, taking inspiration from rickshaw painting, and she uses a lot of vibrant colors like that you see in my work also. And she uses and her work is deeply political, that we see many incidences in Bangladesh, that many mishaps that happen in Bangladesh, like uh, violence against women, and also like the political violence. Her work is really deeply inspired by those things. So she is one of my inspiration. And also there's this American artist, Cindy Scotland. If I'm not, I hope I'm not pronouncing it wrong. She inspires me. And also in Bangladesh, there are many really great photographers who inspire my work also. Like I don't do, and like I mentioned, I don't do black and white very well. But there are many photographers in Bangladesh who do really great black and white traditional photography, and they inspire me as well. So yeah, I take inspiration from many people. So yeah.
And how is your work accepted in Bangladesh? Is it seen as a commentary, maybe also provocative?
Um, yeah, many people have many different types of reaction about my work. For one thing, I can say that people often feel confused to categorize my work, because it's not journalistic or documentary style of work. It's a bit of autobiographic. It's personal, and also there's a element of like using textile, and textile is a very important. The style of textile is very important in my work. So that actually also confuses people, because they find it difficult to place my work. So yeah, but most of the time people are fascinated with the colors and stuff like that, because yeah, the color dominates most of my images. So yeah, this is how they receive.
Mm. Have you ever maybe considered also working with in textile, creating textile, not just taking photos of it? since you're surrounded with it all the time. Did it intrigue
Yeah.
you at all to maybe start creating in textile?
So many times. I mean, I want to do it so badly, but I haven't gotten the chance to do it yet. But I really want to work with the silk that Bangladesh produces. Like we have really wonderful silk. We have a city that we call Rajshahi, where they produce this particular kind of silk. We call it Rajshahi silk, and it's very soft, very fine, and it's really beautiful in quality. But I don't think many people know about it. Like I went to, I would share one story about about a travel that I did. I went to Istanbul. And I went to this city called Bursa, and they have this 100-year-old silk market, and they were bringing many different types of silk from all over the world, and I felt that they have a really big tradition of producing silk, and they have a really big market of it. But Bangladesh used to produce really great quality silk during the British time, British colonial phase. But later on, we actually lost many skills craftsmen that used to produce really fine quality textile like muslin. We actually did. I mean. Greek Photography Institute actually did a research-based work on muslin, how it was produced and how it was famous for its fine quality, and it was famous all over the world, and how we lost it because of the environmental changes and because many other factors that are associated with it. So I really want to work with silk like this, maybe use it in my work, and maybe print my work into this kind of many different types of textile. I have also like printed my images into textile. That is one way of like going towards it. But the question that you have asked about producing it, I really badly want to do it, but I haven't gotten the chance yet. Maybe in future.
Uh, I really hope so. What about all the clothes and all the pieces that you use for your portraits? What happens to all this textile? Do you store it? Do you wear it yourself? What happens after the photograph is taken?
Yeah, I actually do not throw them away. I keep most of the textile that I use, and I try to use them repeatedly. And in my work, I do not use them in my work. I use it for something else. Most of the things that you have seen in my work, either I have used it in my home, or kept it, or done some other work with it.
Okay, maybe we're nearing to the end of our conversation, and I wanted to ask you also about your teaching position. How do you find being a teacher affects your art, or do you enjoy spreading the knowledge?
I really enjoy talking to the young people who are going through similar kind of journey, and I love sharing what I have gone through when I was doing this work and when I was a student as in photography. So yeah, that was very satisfying for me, the teaching. Right now I'm on a break, but I hope to go back to it soon. So yeah, it has been very rewarding for me.
We hope we'll be able to also greet you live someday here in Slovenia at BN. Not just your photography, or maybe even you could give, I don't know, a demonstration or a workshop. Do you do also workshops with young people, or maybe anyone else outside the university? Do you collaborate with other artists, or is your work more of a solitary journey?
Collaboration actually happens, when I'm doing some project for somebody else. So far, I have not really collaborated with anybody. In terms of like producing art, when it comes to producing art, like I would collaborate with somebody who is from another discipline, maybe a writer, maybe a journalist, maybe somebody who's practicing in a different medium rather than photography. uh, yeah, that kind of I haven't done any formal collaboration yet, so yeah.
Well, that's all in the future. Thank you so much for talking to us, for showing your beautiful art. And of course, it is also on view in Kran. So everyone that's listening, you are invited to go and see it live. It's much more, you can really immerse yourself when you see images up close, not just on your screen. Yeah, maybe just for the end, it did cross my mind because your images are so vivid and colorful. A lot of AI created photos are very vivid and colorful. Um, how do you see artificial intelligence in the field of visual arts? Do you maybe feel it as a competition, or maybe you are even inclined to use it?
No, it is very intriguing. Like there has been many interesting conversations about it. Like, do we need AI producing art at all? Like that's a really important question that many people has raised, and I think we do need to ask this. Like, do we need artificial intelligence to produce work or make our lives more easier so that people can do, artwork? So I think, yeah, as we go on, I think these conversations will become louder and louder, and we'll be able to decide onto something. Like I think recently we had this incidents of that actually uh, uh, by Boris Ildexon, if I'm not saying his name wrong, in IPA, where he actually sent out a photography work that was made by, that was actually produced by AI. He calls it prompt artwork or something like that, and he made a really big. He has written a really big post about it, and he claims that this should be actually regarded as a prompted artwork rather than photography. To some extent, I actually agree with him. If it's produced by AI, it should be clearly stated rather than portraying it as something that humans have created. And also, we need to ask the important questions that do we need AI to produce artwork, or we should be letting people do more creative things. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and as we were also saying yesterday with our other guest, art is not in the finished product. It's a lot of the time in the process. It's not just about the pretty picture in the end, but it's about all the research and knowledge that goes into creating that picture, and that is devoid of AI. That is something that a living artist in a flesh can do, and computer for now cannot. And I hope it stays like that for a while, at least. Thank you so much. Maybe any parting thoughts from your side?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here. I was really happy to see the images that were sent out to me of the exhibition. I wish I could be there physically. Hope I'll be able to be there in future, in the next edition, and see the festival on my own, I mean, with my own eyes. So that will be really exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much again for talking to us today. And thank you to all that joined the conversation. This was BN 2023 Artist Talk. See you tomorrow with our guest, Adrienne Colburn. And Habiba Nowrose, thank you and goodbye.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you, everyone. Bye.